According to the National Electrical Code, the dedicated space for electrical equipment extends from the floor to the structural ceiling. Section 110.26a of the NEC states dedicated electrical space shall not be used for purposes other than electrical, including storage, regardless of whether access is restricted or not. Section 110.26b further clarifies dedicated space shall not include building service areas such as elevator machine rooms, janitor closets, or other utility rooms or spaces. Dedicated space shall not extend beyond floor to ceiling or floor to structural ceiling height unless the space is defined by a smokestop bulkhead. Therefore, based on these code requirements, the dedicated space for electrical equipment, including power distribution units, would not extend under the raised floor. The dedicated space would end at the raised floor it is sitting on. However, it is important to note that this is a general interpretation of the NEC. Local codes and regulations may vary, and it is always best to consult with a qualified electrician or code official to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. In a data center setting with raised floors and PDU, the concept of dedicated space as defined by the National Electrical Code, or NEC, becomes crucial for ensuring safety and code compliance. The primary question revolves around whether the dedicated space mandated for electrical equipment extends beneath a raised floor, particularly when chilled water pipes are present. To address this, it is essential to dissect the relevant sections of the NEC and apply them to the specific scenario of a data center with a raised floor. The NEC definition of dedicated space is outlined in section 110.26, which emphasizes the importance of maintaining clear and unobstructed space around electrical equipment for safe operation and maintenance. Specifically, section 110.26a underscores that dedicated electrical space shall not be used for purposes other than electrical, including storage, regardless of whether access is restricted or not. This implies that the area designated as dedicated space should be exclusively reserved for electrical equipment and its associated components, free from any non-electrical installations or storage. Furthermore, section 110.26b provides additional clarification by stating that dedicated space shall not include building service areas, such as elevator machine rooms, janitor closets, or other utility rooms or spaces. This section further specifies that dedicated space shall not extend beyond floor to ceiling or floor to structural ceiling height unless the space is defined by a smokestop bulkhead. This particular clause is vital for determining whether the dedicated space extends beneath the raised floor in a data center. Given that the NEC explicitly states that dedicated space shall not extend beyond floor to structural ceiling height, it can be inferred that the dedicated space for electrical equipment, including PDU, would not extend under the raised floor. Instead, the dedicated space would terminate at the raised floor upon which the equipment is situated. Therefore, the area beneath the raised floor, where chilled water pipes are planned to be installed, would not be considered part of the dedicated electrical space. However, it is crucial to acknowledge that this interpretation is based on a general understanding of the NEC and its application to a typical data center configuration. Local codes and regulations may introduce variations of specific requirements that could impact the interpretation of dedicated space in a particular jurisdiction. As such, it is imperative to consult with qualified electricians, local code officials, or other relevant authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements in the specific location where the data center is being constructed or operated. In addition to the general interpretation of the NEC, several other factors should be considered when evaluating the dedicated space requirements in a data center with a raised floor. Firstly, the type of electrical equipment being installed, such as PDU, and their specific installation requirements should be taken into account. Manufacturers' specifications and guidelines often provide detailed instructions regarding the necessary clearances and dedicated space for their equipment. Secondly, the presence of other infrastructure components such as cable trays, conduits, or grounding systems within or adjacent to the dedicated space should be carefully evaluated. The NEC contains provisions addressing the installation and separation of different types of electrical and non-electrical systems, and these provisions must be adhered to in order to maintain safety and code compliance. Thirdly, the overall layout and design of the data center should be considered to ensure that the dedicated space for electrical equipment is adequately protected from physical damage, environmental hazards, and unauthorized access. The NEC includes requirements for the protection of electrical equipment in various environments, and these requirements should be incorporated into the data center's design. Furthermore, it is essential to establish a comprehensive maintenance and inspection program to ensure that the dedicated space for electrical equipment remains free from obstructions and is properly maintained over time. Regular inspections should be conducted to identify any potential violations of the NEC or local codes, and corrective action should be taken promptly to address any deficiencies. In summary, while the general interpretation of the NEC suggests that the dedicated space for electrical equipment in a data center with a raised floor does not extend beneath the raised floor, it is crucial to consult with qualified professionals and local authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements. Additionally, careful consideration should be given to the specific characteristics of the data center, including the type of equipment being installed, the presence of other infrastructure components, and the overall layout and design. By following these steps, data center operators can ensure that their facilities meet the highest standards of safety and code compliance, minimizing the risk of electrical hazards and maximizing the reliability of their operations. The National Electrical Codes, or NEC, requirements concerning dedicated space for electrical equipment are designed to ensure safety, accessibility, and proper functionality. In the context of data centers, particularly those with raised floors, these requirements demand careful consideration due to the density of electrical infrastructure and the presence of other critical systems such as cooling and networking. The question of whether dedicated space extends beneath the raised floor, especially when chilled water pipes are present, necessitates a detailed examination of NEC guidelines and their practical application. Firstly, understanding the definition of dedicated space as per the NEC is crucial. Dedicated space, as outlined in section 110.26, refers to the area exclusively reserved for electrical equipment and its associated components. This space must be free from obstructions and used solely for electrical purposes, ensuring that personnel can safely access and maintain the equipment. The NEC emphasizes that dedicated space should not be used for storage or any non-electrical purposes, maintaining a clear and unobstructed zone around electrical installations. Section 110.26a reinforces this principle, stating that dedicated electrical space shall not be used for purposes other than electrical, including storage, regardless of whether access is restricted or not. This provision underscores the importance of maintaining a clear zone around electrical equipment to facilitate safe operation and maintenance activities. Furthermore, Section 110.26b clarifies the boundaries of dedicated space, specifying that it should not include building service areas such as elevator machine rooms, janitor closets, or other utility rooms. More importantly, it stipulates that dedicated space shall not extend beyond floor to ceiling or floor to structural ceiling height unless the space is defined by a smoke stop bulkhead. This particular clause directly addresses the question of whether dedicated space extends beneath the raised floor in a data center. Given the NEC explicit limitation of dedicated space to floor to structural ceiling height, it can be reasonably inferred that the dedicated space for electrical equipment, including PDU, does not extend under the raised floor. Instead, the dedicated space terminates at the surface of the raised floor upon which the equipment is installed. Therefore, the area beneath the raised floor, where chilled water pipes are planned to be located, would not be considered part of the dedicated electrical space. However, this interpretation is subject to local codes and regulations, which may introduce specific requirements or variations that could affect the application of dedicated space rules. As such, it is essential to consult with qualified electricians, local code officials, or other relevant authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable requirements in the specific jurisdiction where the data center is located. In addition to the general interpretation of the NEC, several practical considerations must be taken into account when evaluating dedicated space requirements in a data center with a raised floor. One key factor is the presence of chilled water pipes beneath the raised floor. These pipes are essential for cooling the data center's equipment, but their proximity to electrical installations raises concerns about potential conflicts with dedicated space requirements. While the NEC does not explicitly prohibit the installation of chilled water pipes beneath the raised floor, it does emphasize the importance of maintaining adequate clearance and separation between electrical and non-electrical systems. Section 300.11 of the NEC requires that raceways, cable assemblies, and cable trays be securely fastened in place, providing support and protection against physical damage. This provision is particularly relevant in data centers where numerous cables and conduits are installed beneath the raised floor. Additionally, Section 300.11b prohibits the use of ceiling support wires or other non-rigid means of support for raceways and cable assemblies. This requirement ensures that electrical systems are securely supported and protected from damage, even in the event of seismic activity or other disturbances. Furthermore, the NEC addresses the separation of electrical and non-electrical systems in Section 300.3c, which requires the conductors of different systems be installed in separate raceways or cable trays. This provision helps to prevent electrical interference and ensures the integrity of both electrical and non-electrical systems. In the context of a data center with chilled water pipes beneath the raised floor, it is essential to maintain adequate separation between the pipes and any electrical cables or conduits. This separation can be achieved through the use of physical barriers, such as cable trays or conduit supports, or by ensuring that the pipes are properly insulated to prevent condensation and water damage. Another important consideration is the accessibility of electrical equipment for maintenance and repair. The NEC requires that electrical equipment be readily accessible to qualified personnel, allowing them to perform necessary maintenance tasks without undue difficulty or hazard. This requirement is particularly relevant in data centers where equipment is often densely packed and access can be challenging. In the context of dedicated space, accessibility means that the area around electrical equipment must be kept clear of obstructions, allowing technicians to safely access and work on the equipment. This includes ensuring that there is adequate headroom, workspace, and lighting in the vicinity of the equipment. Furthermore, the dedicated space must be free from storage or other non-electrical uses that could impede access to the equipment. In summary, while the NEC definition of dedicated space generally excludes the area beneath the raised floor in a data center, it is essential to consider the practical implications of this interpretation and ensure that all applicable requirements are met. This includes maintaining adequate separation between electrical and non-electrical systems, providing accessibility for maintenance and repair, and complying with all local codes and regulations. By carefully evaluating these factors and consulting with qualified professionals, data center operators can ensure that their facilities meet the highest standards of safety and code compliance.